Okay, so who am I? I'm a former sergeant for North Yorkshire Police. I'm not leaving anybody out in that bit there. It's just you and then Helen, that's fine. Former sergeant for North Yorkshire Police. 23 years I did in the police, and I was sergeant, and they passed my inspectors. And within that organisation, I learned an awful lot about diverse communities. In fact, just people and their differences and then their similarities as well. I always had one foot with gender equality. Never really understood why. I gravitated towards making sure that there was fairness and equality. I didn't know that it was called diversity and inclusion and equality, but I just didn't like bullies, and I didn't like people being unfair. And so I started, and you can imagine this, so it was 1996, and I started the first gender network in North Yorkshire Police. Think Sergeant Blaketon Heartbeat, okay? And that was me trying to bring in change in order that we had some kind of equality in terms of opportunity for women in the police service. And you can imagine I got my head shot off quite a lot whilst I did that. So I sort of, if you like, I learned my trade in quite a harsh way, but it gave me some valuable skills that I still learn today, that I still use today. My son was diagnosed when he was 8 with autism, and that sort of shifted my view, if you like. I looked to see what we were actually doing as an organisation to interact. How are we interacting? How are we communicating? How are we engaging with our autistic community, as was then? And the reply to that was not very well, in case any of you want the result of that piece of work. So I set about trying to do something about that, and I got support of the Chief Officer team, and we started something called All Things Autism. Then, just because I'm never happy with what I've got, I decided that we were going to push that, and it was going to become neurodiversity, and it was a word that nobody had ever heard of. So I had to write a white paper for the Chief Officer team to say, you know, this is neurodiversity, this is the terminology, etc., etc., and this is what it is. That got accepted, and it was the first in British policing. And then I retired. So thanks very much, that was all the glamour, and now I'm off. So that was a year last August, and then I started Crease Puddle, basically doing what we'd done within the police, but for the private sector, the public sector, the third sector. So looking at how we employ, recruit, retain, progress neurodivergent individuals within organisations, looking how we engage with our neurodivergent customers, how we look after our staff who are parents of, sisters of, brothers of, those who are neurologically different within organisations. So we do lots of training, etc., etc., and if you want to hear more about that, go to the website and you can have a little look. But what that's enabled me to do is give me a platform where I meet people like Helen, where I hear these amazing stories about individuals who are making that change. Be the change is a great hashtag, and it's really about living that day in, day out. So yes, so I have ADHD, and no, I'm not criminal, I'm police, random. So I don't have a drug addiction, I'm not an alcoholic. So there's lots of stereotypes out there about people with ADHD. I'm not sure I fit all of them. I do swear though, quite a lot. It's going to be very good for you all today. My son is autistic. My daughter is newly diagnosed dyslexic because she was feeling quite left out. And my husband is very boring. We suspect that he's dyspraxic, but we're not going to allow him to go get diagnosed. Because then we can't pick on him for being normal. But let's just talk about a little bit about the terminology. Have you all heard of neurodiversity? We're using that phrase today. You've heard of neurodiversity? Okay. Okay. Right. Well, now you have, Toby. Now you're an expert. Okay. So neurodiversity is essentially, for me, neurobrain, diverse, different. Everybody's brain is different. So when we're talking about Crease Puddle, our approach is the acceptance that everybody's brain works differently. Pretty much full stop. Okay? Neurodivergent. Have you heard this phrase, neurodivergent? Yes? Some of you? Okay. So I would be neurodivergent, okay, because I am either aware of or I'm diagnosed with a condition. Some people will identify with a condition, like ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, blah, 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 but they're not necessarily diagnosed, but they're still very aware that they're linking with those characteristics and identifying with them. And then we have the boring normal people. So they would be called neurotypical. Now, I just want a little hands up. Who thinks that they're normal in this room? Yeah, right, I agree with that. That was a non, by the way. What does that say about your marketing? Okay, so what is neurodiversity? Now, we're going to spend a bit of time on this, but I want you to ignore cognitive abilities and IQ to a certain extent, okay? But this is a spiky profile. Now, if there's only one thing that you take away from this talk today, it's A, the word neurodiversity and neurodivergent, because you'll sound very clever at dinner parties, especially you, Toby. But also this, this slide. Now, you can actually get this slide on Google, just Google spiky profile. But it explains so much. Now, I'm thinking that this might have a... Oh, it does! Okay, it's got a toy. Excellent. Right. Okay. So, I'm going to explain this to you, and it all is going to become apparent. Right. Here is your neurotypical person, which would be your normal person. Okay? This is the standard for a normal person. So there they go, they've measured a normal person, and that's what and that's what they come out at in terms of their IQ, their cognitive abilities. Okay, so that's the normal person. Now, what you find is that the neurodivergent is a spiky profile. Okay? And we've got some great evidence of that in the room. So Shani was saying earlier on that she was saying that actually my disability gave me a power. It gave me the ability to plan. I've written it down what you said. You said it gives me the ability to plan. It's used and it's giving you the ability to always expect a challenge and have to rise to a challenge. And for me, that just shows the top of your spiky profile. And this is neurodiversity. So all you're doing really there is exploiting your neurodiversity, aren't you? Okay? Now, so if you identify with or you are diagnosed with a condition, then this is your spiky profile. Okay, don't take any notice of the things above and below it, but you are a spiky profile. Reasonable adjustments are these bits here. So what we do is, with reasonable adjustments, is we colour in these bits here to give you a level playing field, or as much of a level playing field as we can, okay? We reasonably adjust to reduce the challenges in the workplace, okay? It's that simple. And we don't just do it in the workplace, hopefully we do it with our friends and we do it with our family, and we do it in order to be a part of society. The tops of this spiky profile, that's basically the definition of neurodiversity for me. Are those bits there. Because we know what these bits are here. They're a diagnosis. They're deficits. The clinical model, and I'll talk again, Shani, you brilliantly teed me up for this one, the social model of the medical model of disability. Thank you very much. The psychologists that I work with will openly admit that they measure in deficits. Okay? So, I bet you all to put your right arm out. Try not to hit the person next to you, please. We don't really... Right, thank you, excellent. Everybody okay to do that? Right, okay. Well done. Okay, you can hit Helen, it's fine, she won't. Okay, so there you go, well done. That is the standard for a normal human being. You can now lower your arm, okay? That was the standard for a normal human being. Now, when you're explaining this to your friends and your family and your colleagues, when you go back to your workplaces, your homes, what you're going to then do is draw these spiky bits at the bottom, okay? And you're going to say, do you know what we do? We measure people in deficits. When we go for an assessment, we measure in deficits. So apparently, it's like, you're fairly crap at that, you're a bit shit at that, you're not so great at that, and oh my God, look at that. Okay? Now, should you measure sufficiently low enough, you get a diagnosis. That's how a diagnosis works. You get a piece of paper delivered to you. Well done. You now have these defects. This is how broken you are. This is what you can't do well. This is not what you're good at. A good psychological assessment, a good psychologist will also do these bits. And that is where the beauty lies, because you can. You can measure these bits too. So if there was one piece of information I would say to you, if you know of anybody that's going for any kind of psychological assessment, you can ask, you can ensure, you can make sure that you get the tops of these spiky profiles measured as well. Okay, it's YS is one of the tools that can be used, okay? And you can insist on that. Because actually the result of only getting measured in deficits, anxiety, poor mental health, absenteeism from work, isolation, withdrawal from society, all of that. We know all this, don't we? We've learnt this all before. So please, please, this is try and get them to have a balanced psychological assessment. So this is what neurodiversity is. So it's the tops of these spiky profiles. And how good is that? It's a really positive movement. It's great because it makes the most of somebody like Helen, who's neurologically different. I am going to pick on you a little bit, Helen, sorry, lovely. And being able to take what she's really good at, and then being able to go, okay, and over here we go, and this is what we can do with that. And some of the challenges that she has, we can colour those in, okay? And she herself, Helen mentioned about the strategies that she was using with her son while working at work. Those strategies are those reasonable adjustments. And what did they cost? Probably nothing. Okay. Okay, so after 3, I'd like you to say neurodivergent. 1, 2, 3. Neurodivergent. You've all said it. For the first time, some of you, but you've all said it. Well done. Okay. Now, all these people have made the most of their spiky profiles. These people are autists, okay? They are autistic, okay? So here we have Chris Packham, but if anyone saw the great documentary that he did on his autism, and here you have Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd, when he was younger, so this is where I show my age, because young people, and they go, Dan who? They go, he's in this thing called Ghostbusters. Oh, do you mean the one with Thorin? No, the one 30 years before that. Okay, so Dan Aykroyd is autistic. He had a preoccupation when he was younger with the paranormal. And then he went on to write Ghostbusters and became a squillionaire, making the top of that spiky profile, okay? Michael Palin. If you look back at the Monty Python work that Michael Palin, wow, that was really kind of, out there, wasn't it? If you think about, again, making the most of that spiky profile. Daryl Hannah from Splash. Does anybody know who this chap is? It's Alan Turing. I'm a real geek for Alan Turing. I went to Bletchley Park 2 months ago. It was like amazing. So Alan Turing was instrumental in breaking the codes in the Second World War. And I'll tell you a little bit more about him later. But he worked on breaking the codes from the Enigma machine in the Second World War, and I will tell you a little bit about that on the last slide. Cara Delevingne is dyspraxic. Daniel Radcliffe is dyspraxic. Keira Knightley is dyslexic. Florence Welsh is dyslexic and dyspraxic. Orlando Bloom is dyslexic as well. Again, very... Absolutely, yes, he really, really is. Yes, he likes his neurological makeup. So all these individuals have never had a sympathy. But you said yeah, totally, absolutely, go for it. Okay, so let's talk about the reports. Now, can I just say at this point, I'd like you to just try and remember everything that Shani gave you about statistics to do with disability, because hers was so much more in depth than mine are going to be. But there are a couple of reports about pay gaps, and we were asked to bring something about pay gaps. The neurodivergent stuff that I've just done is to kind of bring you all up to speed so that you kind of know what we're talking about, okay? But yeah, pay gaps. So the Equality and Human Rights Commission in 2017 produced these statistics. And this was on disability. There are some particular challenges in terms of hidden disabilities, and I will come on to those. And for us, in the workplace particularly, it is a growing awareness. We are learning all the time how we can make sure that individuals who are neurodivergent are included and exploited for their neurological differences in a positive way. And we are learning all the time how that is good, how we can do that and what that best practice looks like. The TUC reported in 2008, in terms of pay gap, was at its highest since 2013. They average £1.50 more than non-disabled, sorry, less than, I should say less, than non-disabled colleagues. But apparently it's going to be a question of time. There's going to be a when, not an if, we start to report on disability. I had my top lawyers the other day saying, so when is it going to be? Apparently the consultation has been, I don't know if you can offer anything on this, but it's imminent. Yeah. And apparently it's going to come in super fast. And are you all ready for it? No! Everyone says no. But I think it's fair to say that we know that there's a pay gap. But there are some particularly interesting challenges when it comes to neurodiversity. So we would call them hidden disabilities. You touched on it, Shani, earlier on in your talk, in your presentation. Okay. So, if it's hidden, shouldn't we just say hidden? So it's in your head. Surely you can pretend all day long, can't you? You can pretend that it's not there, and you can pretend that then there wouldn't be a pay gap, would there? You'd just be, if there's no intersectionality, you're just this white, heterosexual. They do get a bit of stick, don't they? But you've got this individual with no disability whatsoever. Surely, if we can just stay hidden, then there's going to be no problem with that. But there really is a problem with that, as Helen would tell us, in that you spend your entire day pretending. You end up mirroring, masking. These are some of the terms that are used. Mirroring, masking, pretending. Trying to be neurotypical. Watching what they do, they say, they feel, they mimic them. And trying to be how they are because they seem to have got it sussed. They seem to have worked it out, so we're just going to copy what they do. And do you know what? It's exhausting. And we talked about social isolation. We've mentioned about mental health, poor mental health. We talked about somebody withdrawing from society. And the reality is that if an individual is not bringing themselves to work, is not being themselves, is not able to be themselves at work, then you're going to have mental health problems, or more likely to have mental health problems. Autists, 50% of autists have attempted to take their own life. 35% of autists of this one particular report said that they had self-harmed. This is compared to the neurotypical. We've missed, to a certain extent, we've missed a real opportunity with all the mental health work that we've done in organisations. When you're talking about your 15% of your staff are neurodivergent, but have you made your policies accessible to them? Do you know how to do that? Would they engage with that? Would they read the stuff? Would they think, yes, that's me? Because they don't with every other facet of their lifestyles in a neurotypical world, and this is what we do. The reality is that the world is made up, and it's only because the neurotypical gang is bigger than the neurodivergent gang that we've set up these processes. And this is where true accessibility is, that actually what we do is that when we write a policy, like a mental health policy, we look at those actually will be more vulnerable. And how do we actually make sure that they're included within that discussion, and how do we engage with them? So the reality, so the answer to that is no, absolutely not. It's bad from a financial perspective. Let's get our cold-hearted business heads on here, okay? It's bad from there's absenteeism, there's a reduction in efficiency, we aren't as productive at work, we're more likely to be in performance management as a result of this, exactly this. What happens if we disclose? Well, So this is what I do. Okay, this is what I do. What happens if we disclose? Well, that all depends on you. That depends on the business. If you already have a proactive approach to neurodiversity, the chances is that you will be promoting an environment, a culture, whereby somebody discloses they're neurodivergent or they are disabled in some other way, and they will say, that's all right, it doesn't scare us. This is what support we've got. Fine. It's not a thing. The support is already in place, and do you know what? Those companies that have embarked on even just that smaller project, it's cost them nothing. They've just done it in the day-to-day running, their HR process, their occupational health, their leadership management. It's cost them nothing. Is it really so hard in order to consider the alternative? What happens if we disclose there is no... I see both sides of this, but if I could encourage you to listen to the likes of Helen, who will promote proactive stance when it comes to disclosure and neurodivergent policies, then please listen to her, okay? Because I also go and sit in employment tribunals. I'll go and sit there because I want to know what I'm talking about. So I see the other side of this, and there is no reason for them to be there. And it's a lot of the time it is because we've stopped talking, we've stopped asking, apparently we know everything, or we just don't want to, and the heels get firmly placed in here. What happens if we disclose? Sometimes good things, sometimes not so good things, and everything in between. But it's unpredictable. Do we have a duty to disclose? The answer is no. Do you want to disclose? Should you disclose? Can you disclose? Should be the question. When do we disclose? So quite often what we're seeing is that people will disclose off the back of a performance management situation. And in fact, there was a recent case, and I've only read it on the train coming down, where a company were found liable in an employment tribunal because a lady disclosed a neurodivergent condition in the performance management system. So she said, well, the reason that this is happening is because of this. And they sort of said, actually, they dismissed it and said, well, you're only saying that because. And of course, they were found liable. So it's really important to know and to empower your staff so that actually they know that from a legal perspective, that's not good enough, never mind a moral and ethical perspective. Why should we disclose? Because of all the great things that can happen. And I've listed a few. Okay, increased well-being, positivity, efficiency, employment engagement. It increases diverse ideas. We had diversity of thought. Was it Barry that said that? He mentioned diversity of thought, somebody did. It increases this diversity of thought. And then we can truly see things from different perspectives. It might be something that we've not considered before. And that's one of the real benefits of employing a neurodivergent workforce. And that is, and when I speak those words, when I give you those adjectives, they aren't just me going, yeah, come on, hold mine Helen's hand and we'll go skipping through the land of neurodiversity. It's so pretty. Okay, that's based on facts, that's based on evidence, it's based on research. It's because I work with these individuals all the time. I am one of these individuals, and I was unfortunately not handled correctly within my workplace. And that's really unfortunate because I could have been so much more. Okay, so we need some takeaways. I got a list, and I'm quite literal. Okay, so I got it, and you would give them takeaways. So here are the takeaways. So here we have. So we're going to increase trust. Okay, so this is going to be your first thing. What I want you to do is start talking about neurodiversity. Okay, so let's start using the terminology. You know, you all can say it now. Okay, so no excuse. Increase trust. Okay, this is one thing that people who are neurodivergent say within workplaces, that actually what they really want is to be able to trust the organisation if they decide that they're going to say the words. If they're going to say to the organisation, do you know what, I'm neurologically different, I'm struggling, or I need some help, or do you know what, I'd be better at that job over there, which has been a recent one that we've helped with. Then really what they need to do is they need to be able to trust you and your organisation. Staff support, so that comes in with your unisons and your staff supports and your internal networks as well. They can be really, really empowering and really, really powerful and a great source of information. Oh, let's not get too excited. HR, so we do lots of training for HR. We bring it right down. We've just been commissioned to do the National Crime Agency's training for HR. And we're bringing in artists to interview them. How good is that? So HR, a fundamental part of all of this, to reduce those pay gaps, to making sure that we're treating people equally, get HR on board, start getting them to use this terminology as well. Sorry, I keep doing that, apologies. Occupational health, lots of occupational health professionals are not skilled in neurodiversity. Okay, oh, there's lots of shaking and nodding of heads on that one. Yes, absolutely. Okay, because actually we're good at raising a desk or altering a chair, but sometimes they don't have the necessary skill sets to deal with hidden disabilities, and it's a bit of a freak out on a Google. Line manager training, and so I hate the word training, but it's the only word I've got. I like to call it education. We can't make you into psychologists, but what we can do is help you to understand that people will think differently, and one things that we've seen, which is really empowering, is that it makes better managers. If you have somebody that makes you analyse your communication skills towards them, you make them a better manager. Anyone heard of Auticon? Apart from you're not, keep hand down. You're a school SWAT, aren't you now? Anyone heard of Auticon? Okay, so this is now your new best friend. Auticon, I should be on commission, but I'm not. Auticon is and they've got an office in London, 30 consultants out of London, Edinburgh now, Manchester by the end of the year. They're an IT company, growing 50% year on year. All they do is employ artists as IT consultants because of their specific ability to be able to retain and speak the language of code. Okay, in a nutshell, that's what they do. Ray Coyle, who is the CEO of Auticon, and I've been on a few different panels and things with him, he will always say it makes better managers. And I've seen that in the workplace. I've seen that where you've got somebody that doesn't really have a clue what they're doing. And then they get somebody, and it's hard work working out that, because they've got to analyse their own communication, their own ways of communicating. And that is very, very empowering once they get that right. Keep doing it, sorry. Mentor, yeah, we've seen, again, this is a great way of increasing trust. For the individual to have a social mentor. So I wish I'd had a social mentor to go to and say, is it okay for me to go and do that thing? Maybe you need to rethink that, Caroline. Sometimes that would have been really good. I don't know whether or not that's something Helen you would have potentially used, but certainly it would have been good should I have had my awareness when I was younger, that I could have gone to somebody and said, should I say that or should I do that thing? Sometimes it's brilliant, and I don't see boxes, never mind thinking outside them. So if I get a no, I just go there, and I just keep going up till I get a yes, which is a great power, but it can also get me lots of trouble. Promote disclosure. I'm going to apologise, the D word. Oh my god, maybe it's a police thing, because there is actually called the Disclosure Act within the police, so I'm going to fall back on that one as an excuse. Okay, and the fact that it's just a little word in it's a really small box. Okay, so I've called it unaware, but that could also be unaware, that also could be diagnosed or undiagnosed, but I say unaware because there's lots of people who aren't diagnosed, who still identify with all the common characteristics of a neurodivergent profile, okay? Now, we've moved on a lot from saying, and I can remember when we did, when somebody says, it comes into your office and they say, you know, actually, I think I'm depressed, and I'm having these thoughts, and I'm really struggling at the moment. Luckily, I think, we've stopped going, oh, no. So what you need to do is you need to go to your doctor, and I need to see that on a report first before I do anything at all. We accept now, don't we, that somebody says that they are struggling with their mental health, that we've got that, okay, we know what to do, okay? The same should apply to the neurodivergent. You don't need to be diagnosed in order to identify with neurodivergent character traits. Why should you need that? Okay, so this is where we start with a lot of individuals, and for me, this is really where the beautiful stuff happens. And this is, again, looking at the pay gap. If we're looking at, actually, we need to make sure that people are bringing themselves to work so that actually we can treat people equally and we can give equal opportunity to everybody. We've got to go through this process. And this is where some of the challenges lie, as I'm sure you're aware. And then the last one is embed. Now, this applies, again, to all of the strands of diversity. in policy, in culture, procedure, with budgets, brand and training. The one thing that I've heard just recently, it's quite interesting, is that so Goldman Sachs would go to, so normally would go to kind of Oxford and Cambridge and would kind of take the cream of the crop. Thanks very much. But actually they're getting challenged now when they're saying, okay, sorry, can you just tell me what your environmental policy is? Can you tell me what your neurodiversity policy is? Can you tell me what your mental health policies are? So we're actually, before they were like, people are considering going here for lesser money and lesser opportunity because actually their branding, their people culture is so much more powerful. And for me, that's a really, really exciting change. And the other thing is that I found, particularly, you'd probably be able to tell me more about here, but certainly in the North, what we found is that if you can't compete on pay, compete on brand. And something along the lines of, you know, your mental health policies and your practices, your inclusion in terms of neurodiversity is something really powerful that anyone can take up. And this is amateur. So he said that sometimes it is the people that no one can imagine anything of that do the things that no one can imagine. And for me, that kind of sums it up. He was autistic. If you want a business case, and why we have to do a business case for just employing people is beyond me. But anyway, if you want a business case, he was instrumental in saving 14 million lives in World War II and reducing the war by an estimated 2 years.
And then they killed him.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And it was horrific. And his legacy is one which we need to learn from. Okay, he started his imagination and his creativity and his problem solving. If you get to go to Bletchley Park, please do. He deserves that. He's a fascinating guy. Thank you.